Thank you for being here. We want to honor your time, so we're going to go on and get started. And we certainly want to welcome you. We appreciate you coming out this evening to be part of this very important conversation. And I'm going to serve as your facilitator. My name is Tony Thompson. I'm Chief of Staff for the district. I'll serve as your facilitator and provide more data and other information to you shortly. But we're going to start with a presentation by our superintendent, and then we're going to be joined by Trustee Ozuna after Dr. Aquino presents. So if you'd help me welcome Dr. Aquino.
Buenas tardes, familia. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. I know we are a small group, but we are a mighty group, and we're eager to hear your thoughts. It is incredible to be back at this school. Look at the amazing building and the work that we are doing here, thanks to the support of our community and our taxpayers for our bond. So thank you so much for being here. Tonight, we are talking about our commitment to every child, no matter where that child is a student in our district. We need you to know that we are committed to embracing, engaging, educating, and empowering our children, your children, like if they were our own, so that they realize their potential to shape their own world and pursue a brighter future. We are firmly committed to delivering on our promise of high-quality education for every child, which is outlined in our strategic management plan, one that we call Always Learning. We call it Always Learning because, like our kids, the district is always evolving and growing as well. And though we refer to it as a strategic management plan, I want to tell you what one of our students, who's part of my student advisory council, shared last year when they got to give us input. He said, Jaime, please do not call it a plan. It is not a plan. It's a document of promises. Very profound from one of our students. And he's absolutely right. This is a document of promises that we have made to our students, to our families, and to our community, that if your children spend 12 or 13 years of their life in our schools, when they graduate from SAISD, they will have the opportunity to pursue a life without boundary. They will be able to pursue, like I am, the American dream, standing in front of you today as an immigrant who came to this country as an adult, somebody who's still trying to learn English. Here I am as your teacher of teachers or the superintendent of San Antonio Independent School District. That's what we want for every single student, and that's why we are here today. We want to do better for your children, for our children, by ensuring each student has similar access to extraordinary educational experiences, as well as amazing extracurricular opportunity, regardless of the neighborhood or the school that their family chooses for them. However, we are not satisfied with our current situation or our current reality, in which smaller schools face challenges in providing all the necessary resources to support their students and their staff. At the same time, we also are not satisfied that our larger schools also lack the necessary resources to support their students, due to the fact that we find ourselves required to reallocate some of our financial resources to assist the smaller school. As you can see, we are at a crossroad. This is truly a dilemma for us. When our small schools, though they're more expensive to operate, as you'll hear later, They cannot deliver on the promise of high-quality education. And our large schools are in the same boat because they don't get all the state funding that is generated so that we can keep all our schools open. So that's what we're trying to change and trying to address, because we have fixed state funding, like that comes per student, and that's why we are here. But please, I want to make it clear. I am not standing in front of you telling you that small schools are bad, that large schools are better. That is not. This is not a doing of our small schools like it's not doing of our larger school. It's a systemic issue that we find ourselves because of the declining enrollment and that we had not addressed it. We try, and you'll hear Tony talk to you later about that. That's the reality. And the reality that we live in a state that underfunds public education by being 45th in the nation. But we, as a familia, are willing to take the tougher path to ensure that your children, our children, get the best education possible that would allow them to pursue a brighter future. We understand that many of you have probably concerns, anxiety, and question about what this study could mean to you as a community member, to you as a staff member, to you as a parent, and to you as a student, and that's why we're here. We want you to know that this study will lead us to recommend to the Board of Trustees changes such as combining or merging schools or closing some school for the 24-25 school year. And I want you to know that nobody wants to close schools. I can tell you, my Board of Trustees do not want to close school. I don't want to close school. I never thought that so early in my tenure as your teacher of teacher, been here for 15 months, I would be engaged in having this conversation with the community. But it is the right conversation. Whether we agree or not with the final recommendation, as a community, we owe it to ourselves and more importantly to our kids to engage in this difficult conversation if we want to do right for our staff, our students, and our family. But here's the important part. We are committed to making this study a transparent one and one where there's a two-way process. Today is meeting number 13 out of 14, and we have been enriched by the feedback, thoughts that we have received from students, parents, community member, and staff. So we are also promised to keep you informed, and we are eager today to hear your thoughts too. Not only your thoughts, we want you to challenge us, give us a suggestion, your concern that you have. Your input matters, and we are grateful that you are here to work with us and help us make a better plan. As I said, you will have a voice in the process, a voice that's probably unprecedented across the country when we talk about potential school closure. Today specifically, we want to hear your thoughts, your concerns, and your suggestion on the criteria that we will use to analyze each campus before making the recommendation to our Board of Trustees. We know that these decisions are complex and not easy to make. We also know that every campus and community has its own unique character and its own unique factors. And the discussions that we will have this evening will help us better understand your hopes, your fears, your dreams, and aspirations for our students and our community. There's one important value that we in the district believe, and we want to share with you today. And that is our conviction that all our resources should be distributed fairly to support all our students. We also have another belief that which I also think the entire city of San Antonio is a belief or value that they cherish. And that is that the members of our familia who are most vulnerable and neediest need more love from us, more support, and more resources, because that is what a fair and just society is all about. It is important to know that the Rightsizing study could begin to reverse years of systemic growing inequity, where some students and family benefit from higher spending, better buildings, and greater access to academic opportunity compared to others. And we don't feel that that's right. So once again, thank you. Thank you for being here. I do want to clarify, because there's a misunderstanding or misconception that we have noticed in some of the other community meetings. And we heard from families and parents, the fact that we're hosting this meeting at Rogers does not mean that Roger is going to close. We don't know which campuses, because that's why we're here, to get feedback from your criteria. Unfortunately, at one of the meetings, they thought that because we were hosting it there, it meant that the school was on the list, even though we still don't have the list. The reason is we wanted to have 2 community meetings in every single member district. The first round, we used our comprehensive high school because they have large space, and we didn't know how many people were going to show up. The second round, we went not to a comprehensive high school, but to another school where we knew we could have an open space that would accommodate, which was the smart decision, because in one of these meetings, it was so packed that we had to bring additional tables and chairs during the meeting because the turnout. That's the why. So don't make the assumption that because we're here, Rogers is going to close. So together, we are going to build a better and stronger plan that will enhance the education our children will receive, and will also make our school better places for our dedicated staff. So again, thank you. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce your elected representative, a champion for kids and for this community, somebody that I have the great honor to be able to serve, call a colleague in Trustee Leticia Osuna. And let me just say this. I want to say that I'm not saying that because Trustee Osuna and the entire board, they're my bosses. I'm not saying that. Because anybody who knows me, I don't compromise my values and my principles around kids to anyone, even if that means costing my job. And if you don't believe me, you can Google me, because I did leave a district and went public rather recent. I left the district, and it was because I didn't feel that the board was focused on what was the best interest of the student. I happen to work with a board that does put student center first, and that is embodied in your representative and Trustee Osuna. She wants to do what's right for the kid. She's going to advocate for your community. So please join me in welcoming Trustee Leticia Osuna.
Okay, good evening. Our teachers and faculty, our staff, our parents, our community stakeholders. I'm here, and I just wanted to tell you, like, this is the precipice of change, this event. And this right-sizing that we are proposing to move our district through. And I kind of want to give some big context to some seismic change shifts of this district. My family has been students and faculty in the district since my grandfather graduated in the 1910s. When he graduated, right, he went through the vocational training to become an electrician, but the district at the time wouldn't let him start on the journeyman program, and the district changed. My dad, when he was in middle school, like a lot of your students, and I'm sure you would think of this as an extracurricular on some days, had to take boxing. As the skinniest kid in his junior high, that was not fun. He didn't look forward to that, and in fact was very close to dropping out of school. The district realized that boxing as an extracurricular for middle school students, maybe they needed to change. My mom was on staff in SAISD in the late 1960s, early 70s, when paddling was still allowed in SAISD, something I think that all of us can agree has no place in the classroom. And I was a student in SAISD when the district took a hard look at our lunch program and realized how inequitable it was to make food available in the middle of the day for students who could pay and leaving many, many others out, or even worse, forcing students, right, to disclose their family's economic situation every single day in the cafeteria. The district realized that and made, a really significant change. This is just part of our DNA. Changing. And I think also part of our DNA is responding to our community and their needs, and our demand, our requirement for top level education and opportunities for all of our children. Some of the history around this study started on June the 20th when we voted on a resolution that called on the district administration to thoughtfully and comprehensively analyze each campus to ensure that we're providing a high-quality education for each and every student. We wanted to know if resources are fairly distributed to support all of our students and all campus staff, and if not, how can we improve our operations to ensure a thriving culture for all? Prompting the study, as you heard, was a decline in student enrollment. We went deep. I did demographics at Texas A&M College Station. I will tell you, I dug deep into the demographics, looking for children that aren't there. They're not there. We're changing. So we're putting our money and resources into too many buildings when we could be putting more money and resources into educating our children, fully staffing our schools, and fairly compensating our staff. We put forth this resolution knowing that a study of this kind could result in recommendations to close or consolidate school buildings, not as a punitive measure. It's a strategy. It's meant to be forward-thinking. Change is hard. It is hard. But I know that it's in our DNA. This is an opportunity to reimagine a better education and a better future for all of our children, and a better future for our educators who mentor your children's growth. Tonight, I really want you to be forthcoming in your concerns, in your hopes, in your aspirations, so we can take all of that into account. There are no foregone conclusions right now. We are really trying to set up an equitable criteria that allows us to meet our goal, which is a generation of students coming out of our schools that are prepared for everything that the world has to offer and will throw at them. So I'm just very happy to be here. I want to introduce Tony Thompson, who has been with the district and is just a phenomenal professional, and we're very lucky to have her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ozuna. I have had the good fortune to grow up in SAISD, to attend schools in SAISD, and to be employed by SAISD since 1980. It's for those reasons that I'm deeply rooted and invested and even protective of the district, particularly when it comes to students and when it comes to families and when it comes to staff. And it's also for those reasons that it's really kind of an honor for me to be able to facilitate this conversation for you this evening. So over the next couple of hours, we're going to spend time having rich discussion with you about the future of the district and our ability to commit to the promises or the plan that we've made to make sure that every child has a good education in every community within the school district. Before we do that, the evening actually will begin with an exploration of data, and it's going to be a review of the criteria that we will be using to frame the decisions. And then after that, in about 20 minutes or so, we're going to give you an opportunity to move through different stations so that you can learn more about the decision-making framework and provide feedback to us about the framework, that we'll use for the decision-making. Before we begin, I want you to look at the card that's kind of a centerpiece on your tables because it captures the definition of a term that we're going to use repeatedly tonight. We've already started using it, and it's the word thrive. And thrive by definition means to grow, develop, prosper, or flourish, well or vigorously. You're going to repeatedly hear us talking about thriving schools, which really is the equivalent of successful schools. The superintendent mentioned the district's strategic management plan, which is called Always Learning. And it was a plan that was created with unprecedented community input because over 6,000 individuals responded to the survey that helped us realize what was important to the community. And as part of that plan, we made a commitment to have this enter into a long conversation so that we could learn more about what's important to the community. We convened a committee of 50 diverse members to include some of these role groups captured here. Students were involved, parents were involved, teachers were involved, other campus personnel, and certainly district leaders were involved. And it was their charge to help us create a vision to ensure that we would have schools and students and a district that was going to be thriving. We also went back to the community to ask them, if you had $100 to spend on a thriving campus, what would you identify as your top 10 priorities? We had 2,000 individuals respond, and 52% of those were students, and these are the top 10 things that they listed as priorities. First was they wanted to ensure that we had a campus or have campuses that are welcoming and safe. I doubt that anyone would argue that that's not important, especially in light of the many things that have happened over time, throughout the country with respect to school safety. So having campuses that are safe and welcoming to families was extremely important to the respondents. The second is to offer additional support for struggling and advanced students. We always offer hurdle help to struggling students. We also need to make sure we're offering support, additional support, to advanced students so that they can continue to advance. Prioritizing well-being and mental health for students is important. Superintendent Aquino convenes a committee of students every year who are part of a student advisory committee. They represent all of the high schools, all of the middle schools, and the academy middle school grades. And for the entire year, they talked, the one thing that was the most concerning and important to them was mental health. Making sure that they had access to mental health resources, making sure that they could get the support they needed to address mental health issues. This has been a significant concern since the pandemic. And we know that we want to be able to provide more support to students so that they can focus on what's important and manage those mental health issues appropriately. They also talked about being able to prepare students to be at or above grade level. Being at grade level should be the baseline. I mean, it certainly shouldn't be anything lower than that. and to provide all resources that are needed for students with disabilities, which is always important to us. They also talked about the importance of helping students become independent thinkers and learners, being able to create, being able to think at higher levels, and to have up-to-date technology resources. Our district has had a strong investment, made a strong investment in technology for several years now. You need to continue to invest in that, though, so that students and staff members have access to up-to-date technology. They talked about embracing family and community, and that's one of the reasons that we're going through this process. There are lots of school districts that are dealing with potential school closures across the country that don't invest this kind of time and energy into bringing the community together, getting input from the community, and making sure that the community fully understands, what's being considered and why these things are being considered. They talked about the importance of offering a wide range of extracurricular activities, and anyone who's either gone through the school systems and participated in extracurricular, or you have children in those systems, you know how important that is to get students to want to be at school, to give them an opportunity to participate, to help them keep their grades up. And it certainly is also a mobilizer for family and community to feel that they're participating in something special. And then the last priority was to have up-to-date furniture and equipment. This is a nice building, that's undergone changes as a result of the bond and your support for that bond improvement. We want all of our sites to be up to date with respect to facilities and to have the equipment that they need so that students and staff can thrive. So later you're going to see and give feedback about the thriving profiles, and our thriving profiles cause us to reflect on whether in our current reality we really are in a position to create successful experiences for students and for schools. And the reflection drove us to look at the data, and that's what I'm about to share with you. And we concluded that we're at a crossroads right now, and we must either engage in this important conversation with you and with the rest of the school district and deal with the current reality, or we're going to continue to experience the inequities that we know exist. So as stewards of your children, we feel obligated to ask, can we live with a system where we offer more resources and support to some students, but we don't offer the same resources and support to all students? So whether you have spent your entire lives in SAISD like I have, or whether you're fairly new to the community, you may be wondering, well, how did we get here? So this is what our data tells us. And we have a great way that this is graphically captured for you. SAISD has been losing enrollment steadily for 20 years, and I'm going to actually say for more than 20 years. And we've not closed school buildings at the same rate that our enrollment has declined. We've been reluctant to close schools, and who wouldn't be? It's a very difficult thing for families to experience, for students to experience, and for staff to experience. But our schools have become emptier in the process. And I'm going to share a couple of not scenarios with you, but a couple of little data points that just illustrates that this goes much farther back than 20 years ago. When I was in high school, I graduated in the class of a long time ago. And at that particular time, in my sophomore class, there were 1,300 students. 1,300 students in the 10th grade. Now, we have 2 high schools that don't have 1,300 students. So it just shows you over time how the enrollment has declined and the community has shifted. It's not in every neighborhood that we have lots of young children and school-age children that are living in the neighborhoods anymore. And that is one of the most significant concerns. The additional data point that I want to share with you is that when we look at, these are the 4 largest school districts in Bexar County. Judson is the 4th largest. Judson has 32 campuses and they serve 24,000 students. Northeast has 75 campuses and they serve 59,000 students. Northside has 124 campuses and they serve 102,000 students. SAISD has 98 campuses, and we serve 44,000 students. You can see how significantly different it is with respect to our buildings and the students we serve compared to these other school districts in the Bexar County region. And that's not unlike what you would see in other large metropolitan areas, across the state. Now, we've invested significantly in innovation since 2014. You see that in 2010, our enrollment was 48,666. In 2014, we started transforming schools. We transformed 35 of our schools, and 32 of them were associated with 1882 partnerships. In 2021, we had 2,000 students that were enrolled in SAISD, largely because of our innovation, that resided outside the SAISD boundaries. They lived in other school districts, but 2,000 were coming to school here in SAISD. In 2022, we had the largest number of out-of-district students who were coming to schools in SAISD. So we were proud of that, happy about that. It meant our schools were doing some great things. It meant certainly our teachers were doing some great things. It was a little bit surprising even to me that SAISD had more students coming from out of district than any other district in Bexar County, because I would have just assumed it would have been Northeast or North Side, but it was SAISD, and that was a good thing. But despite that, our enrollment has continued to decline. And even compared with what a demographer projected 15 years ago, we have 3,000 students less than the demographer anticipated we would have when this study was conducted 15 years ago. The other point that I want to share with you is that, across the district and in almost every community, these challenges are being experienced. So you're probably wondering, so where are the children going? There are two primary reasons that the children are not here, in our district boundaries, and again, this would be the same in other districts as well. First of all, it's because of the declining birth rate. The birth rate in SAISD has declined significantly over the last several years. Since 2007, the birth rate in the SAISD zip codes has declined by 36%. Since 2014, the under 18 population has also declined significantly. Actually, since 2010, has declined by 14%. So that's the number one reason. Families are not having as many children as they used to have, and that's impacting us in a significant kind of way. The second factor has to do with affordable housing. Many times when families are looking to purchase a home, move into a home, there are not as many affordable options in some communities as there are in others. Now, that can probably have a different look depending on the community. Certainly if you're closer to the center of SAISD, there's not a lot of affordable housing in that particular part of the school district. You see lots of apartments, lots of condominiums, but you don't see lots of families with school-age children, living there. So those are the two most significant challenges for us. Only 20% of our declining enrollment would be attributed to the fact that our students have gone to other school districts or to charter schools. So again, the two top reasons, declining birth rate and lack of affordable housing. Only 20% of the decline is associated with our students leaving our district to attend charter schools or to attend schools in other school districts. So what does this mean? It means that our resources are spread too thinly, and it's creating inequities that are being experienced by not only students, but also by staff. So you can see with these graphics that our smaller schools are more expensive to operate, yet they offer fewer programs and services. And smaller schools are likely to experience a couple of things that I'll highlight here. First of all, on a very small elementary campus, we may have 10 first graders attending school at that campus and 12 second graders, and that's it. In that case, we're going to end up combining classes, and we're going to have a mixed first and second grade. Now, that's not the easiest thing, for a teacher to manage, because the teacher then is being responsible for teaching two different grade levels, two different curricula, and it just creates challenges that we would like to be able to avoid. The second, let's just say we're still on this very small school campus, and maybe it's even an academy that has sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, but there's only one sixth grade math teacher, or one fourth grade teacher, or one third grade teacher. Well, in those cases, teachers don't have a partner with which they can collaborate, with which they can plan together around the same curriculum, around the same subject matter. So that puts teachers, kind of at a disadvantage, because they can't, work with a colleague who's basically teaching the same thing. And then there's some other reasons that are also captured here as well. But the point is, smaller schools don't have the same resources, and they don't have the same support for students and also for staff. The cost per student at our smallest elementary school is 2 times higher than it would be at the largest elementary school. And that same trend runs throughout the configurations. At the academy level, the smallest academy is going to cost 1.9 times more than the large academy. At the middle school level, it's 1.4 times higher, and at the high school level, it's 1.8 times higher. So this isn't a new story. We actually not started, because we closed schools prior to 2008, but at that time, administration and the board embarked on another right-sizing effort, and we started working with demographers who were predicting and projecting what our conditions were going to continue to look like if we didn't start trying to align our school buildings with the numbers of students that we were serving. So this is a graphic that basically represents that, and it indicates again that smaller school communities are getting less than more robust school communities. So we did close 6 schools in 2008, and we closed 3 more schools in 2009. And then there were a few others that came online a few years later that were all tied to either bond renovations, but they were all part of this initial study that took place back in 2007 and 2008. So 15 years later, we're going to offer a video that will illustrate the difference between those that have and those that don't have as much. So if you would, watch the video.
This is a tale of 2 schools. Our first school, Mountain Elementary, is fully enrolled and nearly every seat is filled. Like all schools, Mountain receives money based on the number of students, as well as their needs, such as whether they are English learners or they receive special education support. Since Mountain is fully enrolled, it has a full staff and offers a wide range of programs. That's why they can afford a full-time music teacher who provides after-school opportunities for students and who organizes performances for parents throughout the school year. Mountain has more than 1 teacher for each grade level and subject, so students benefit from teachers that can plan together. If a student and teacher pairing is not working well, parents can ask to move their kids to another class. At Mountain, when a student with special needs requires extra support, the services are provided right at the school by a full-time specialist. And when a student is in crisis, there's a full-time mental health professional on campus who can speak with the student on the same day, usually within minutes. Mountain enrollment allows the principal to decide whether to hire an instructional coach to support teachers, an intervention teacher to help kids who need to catch up on reading or math, a full-time librarian, or a family and community engagement specialist to work with families. Because Mountain is fully funded, the school can afford to send teachers to summer training to learn new strategies and share ideas with teachers from across Texas. Now let's take a look at our second school, Ocean Elementary. Ocean is under-enrolled. This means that their building has lots of extra space and empty seats. Because they have fewer students, they generate less state funding than Mountain Elementary, and they cannot fully staff their school or offer a wide range of programs with the money they get. To help Ocean, the district must take some money from Mountain and other schools so Ocean can provide necessary services. Since Ocean cannot afford a full-time music teacher, they hire one part-time. This means the teacher is not always available to provide after-school opportunities for students or organize performances for parents throughout the school year. Because Ocean does not have more than one teacher at a grade level in each subject, the teacher must plan alone. If a student-teacher pairing is not working well, parents cannot move their kids to another class and must take their child to another school. At Ocean, when a student is in crisis, there may not be anyone on campus who can assist immediately. It could take hours or days to connect the student with help from a mental health professional. At Ocean, when a teacher or student struggles, support must be provided by the principal or assistant principal. They may not be able to afford an instructional coach, intervention teacher, librarian, or family and community engagement specialist. Ocean does not offer all special education services, so a student who needs help may have to go to another school. The Ocean principal must carefully choose resources and training for teachers because the school has limited money. All our students deserve better, and this study will help us look at all of our schools and see if we are providing the high-quality education we promised in our Always Learning Strategic Management Plan. This will help us reach our district commitment to love, nurture, and teach all of our students as if they are our own, so that they realize their power to shape the world.
So we want all of our schools to have the kinds of resources that Mountain School has. We want all of our students to have equitable access to educational opportunities, and we feel that Rightsizing can help us accomplish this. When done right, Rightsizing can lead to better schools to stronger schools by aligning the number of campuses and their capacity with the number of students that are being served. It'll be easier to make sure that schools get the resources that are needed so that they can become stronger. So to address our declining enrollment, our excess buildings, and our inequitable experiences, the board called on staff to study our capacity at its June meeting and directed us to develop a framework with input from the community, which again is why we're here this evening, to evaluate all campuses. So Ms. Ozuna referred to this earlier. She said that on June 20th, the board created and developed a resolution that called for this right-sizing study. And again, it means going out to the community, sharing information, getting feedback. And we started having formal community meetings on August 17th. The last one for this round, the 14th meeting, will be held on September 12th. And then it will be at the September 18th board meeting that will take recommendations, for the framework and for the decisions to the board. Now, on that evening, decisions won't be made. The board's not going to approve something specifically, but it will be our capturing and sharing of the input about the framework and the decision-making and how it's going to apply to the campuses that will be shared with the board. We'll then, a couple of nights later, start another round of community meetings, and we'll be going back out into the community, whether it's, the large spaces again, like the comprehensive high schools, or the larger spaces like the traditionally built middle schools, or even into the communities where, the closures are likely to happen, to just, again, share information, provide input, and we'll have at least another 14 meetings, and then we'll go back to the board on November 13th with the final recommendations. So that's when the final decisions will be made. After that meeting, then we will deploy, before I say that, once we go to the board for the final recommendations on November 13th, there won't be, for instance, a pulling out of one school or the other. So let's pretend that Ocean Elementary is an SAISD school. And let's say that we go to the board and the board says we support the package, but not Ocean Elementary. That's not how it's going to work. We will have spent a lot of time considering feedback, looking at data, so that we can apply all of that to the framework and to the decision-making process. So it'll be a complete package, whatever that package ends up looking like. So after that, after the November 13th board meeting, then there will be 2 different transition teams deployed to help facilitate transitions. One transition team is attached to the Office of Access and Enrollment, and that's the team that works with parents and families and students to make sure that, they're getting registered, to make sure that, we will know, where the parents would like for their children to go. We will have plans about where the children should go, based on proximity to schools that would be welcoming schools. But those individuals will be there to hold hands and to make sure that parents and students and principals who are assigned to schools that are closing get the support that's needed. The second transition team is attached to Human Capital Management, and their job after November 13th will be out in the schools that have been identified for closure or consolidation to help them feel secure about having employment opportunities, whether it's going to that receiving school or whether it's some other campus. We just want not just teachers, but all employees to not be worried about that and concerned about that, because the transition team attached to HCM will work with them to make sure, that we can find opportunities for them as well. That's our pledge. That's our commitment. And then district staff will meet with each community at each closed school and each receiving school at least twice after the board's decision. So that's how this is going to unpack after November 13th. So today we're sharing the draft framework with you that guides our decision-making process, and it has 3 components. So the first is values, and the values are the norms or the beliefs that basically drive this thinking and decision-making. Second would be primary criteria, and the third is contextual criteria. For values, obviously the most important value to us is to foster thriving schools. We want schools and students who can thrive and who will be successful. The second is to support families and students, and that's why we're here tonight. That's why we've been here for the other 12 nights leading up to tonight, and we have one more next week before we synthesize data, and then we come back again. The third is to stand by our staff. We have a strong commitment to keep our staff, and we certainly will work with them to make sure that we find opportunities, for them. The fourth is to view all criteria that are used during the decision-making process with an equity lens or through an equity lens. And equity, by definition, means fair and just. Equity is different than equal. Equal means exactly the same. Equitable means substantially similar. So every decision we're making has a lens of equity that's attached to it. The fifth one has been a commitment that we're making to not leave abandoned buildings. We know that communities don't want abandoned buildings in their communities. There are lots of good ways that we could use these buildings or convert these buildings, and some of them, based on even feedback from other community meetings, have included things like creating fine arts centers, for students that just have a niche in fine arts, and it's almost like creating a fine arts magnet, or senior citizen communities, or recreation facilities, or having a school or a program that would serve 0 to 3-year-olds children. Now, that kind of program wouldn't be operated by the school district. It would be operated by some other partner, but those are some effective ways that we could use facilities without abandoning them, and we're going to welcome more input from you this evening about other ways we could use it. One that I didn't mention that has come up before is to use some of the facilities for affordable housing for employees. So lots of good options, for us to consider that would keep us from just leaving them vacant. And the last is to upgrade the remaining buildings and programs. So going back to Ocean Elementary and pretending for a minute that it's an SAISD campus, rather than, so let's pretend for a minute that Ocean was scheduled to actually, actually to have some bond work completed. Well, if Ocean was going to have bond work completed and the school is going to close, then we would make sure that the receiving schools around Ocean that would pick up the Ocean students would have those monies flowed to the campuses for appropriate upgrades. Primary criteria deal with numbers. So the first is enrollment. How many students attend the school? The second is facility use. How much of the facility is being utilized? And the third is facility cost per pupil. How much does SAISD spend on students at one school compared to another school? Contextual criteria are indicators that help us make the best decisions, to include identifying the best receiving schools, meeting the needs of families and students, and then making sure that we're meeting the goals and guardrails that the board has established, as well as the goals and objectives associated with our thriving profiles and our always learning plan. So now it's going to be time for you to move and get feedback, and let me give you some instructions first. First thing I want you to do is to get a passport that's on your table. So find a passport. Everybody needs one. And first thing I want you to do is write your name on it. And if you want to share your contact information, either your phone number or your email address, feel free to do so. You don't have to, but at least put your name on it. When you finish this gallery walk, you're going to deposit your passports in a basket because we're going to draw names, for some door prizes. But here's what is going to happen. We have 5 stations that we're going to have you visit. The color of the sticker on your passport indicates that's the first station that you're going to visit. So for instance, how many of you have pink? A pink sticker? Any pink stickers? Okay, well, if you have a pink sticker, the first station you'll go to is the Thriving Profile station with the pink header over here. If you have green, you're going to go to the values. If you have green. If you have purple, it's the contextual criteria back over in the corner. If you have blue, it's the primary criteria, which is back in this corner. And the orange is the Rightsizing website. So that's the first station you'll go to. We're going to set aside 30 minutes for you to move through the stations. When there are about 3 minutes left, I'm going to signal you that it's time to come back. We also have a staff station if there are any staff that have questions, and a family station if any parents have questions about transportation or anything along those lines. We do encourage you to monitor your time so that you can move through all of the stations, because your feedback about all 5 of these is going to be very important to us. So again, we're allocating 30 minutes. About 3 minutes before it's time, you'll hear this so that you can kind of wrap up your thoughts and come back to your seats. In the meantime, the superintendent and trustee are going to be at the Affinity Station. They're going to collect all of your input and synthesize the data, because the last thing we'll do with you this evening will be to spend some time sharing reflections. So with that, please go to the first station that you're assigned to, and then just move around as much as you can within that 30 minutes. All right. Well, we want to continue to move this process along, and during this closing piece, we're going to give the superintendent and Trustee Ozuna an opportunity to share reflections. They've been over here, by the windows, collecting feedback from you and synthesizing it, so they're going to share some of the key themes and threads that we have identified based on your feedback. So let's go on and get started. You're going to come first? Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you all very much for the amazing feedback that you have given us. And Trustee Ozuna and I have read most of them, and we're going to respond. We're not going to respond. We're going to read you and share some of your quotes, some of your questions, some of your concerns, some of your suggestions. A couple of things that I want to make sure that you do understand is today, we're not answering your question. We're not addressing your concern. The purpose of this meeting was really to listen to you and get your feedback so you can make the revisions. Now you're wondering, so then what happens to the feedback? So if you go to the Rightsizing website, you will see a picture of every single posted that was given in all the 13 meetings so far. You will also see a transcription. We have transcribed each of these. We have a PowerPoint deck that tells you, if you went to the Highlands, which was our first one, you can see a summary of the patterns and direct quotes of what the community felt. Your questions and concerns, we're using them to continue building our frequently asked questions. So I encourage you to visit our website. On September 13, our last community meeting is September 12. On September 13, we're going to send communication to everybody and say, here are the revisions that we made to the framework or the criteria based on the input and feedback that we received. I just want to be also very clear that the fact that you might have given a specific feedback doesn't necessarily mean it will be reflected in the changes. Why do I mean by that? Because it might be just Cece's only feedback, and that's our individual feedback, but nobody else in the 14 communities meeting felt that same way. So we're looking for the patterns and trends. We really want to make sure that we are addressing what resonated more with the community. So right now, I am going to share with you and direct quotes and read it as it was written. In terms of values, the values that resonated with this group are very similar to almost all community meetings. And here was a direct quote. These values are a good foundation. It is very important that we value our staff that have been committed to our district and ensure they all continue to have jobs and fair wages. Another one, parents said, these values are good. The most important one is creating thriving schools. I feel like this one incorporates equity work and the other values as well. A comment, I feel that Rogers is thriving, but could have more enrollment. We agree. There are great things happening at Rogers, and we want to see more of our kids take advantage of that. One of the suggestions was, can we focus on mental health after the transition? You know, perhaps as a suggestion, can we do campus walk to get familiar with the new schools that we will be going? Another one said, I'm looking forward to the opportunity of the Rightsizing because hopefully it will offer fine arts programs such as mariachi, band, art, and dual language programs are also important. One recommendation that was made was, I really care about historic buildings. Is there any way to preserve them even after you leave with a partner or a historian? On the values, there was a concern. Values should be more than just building. It is confusing when we have too many values. Then, a suggestion, repurposed buildings should remain open to the community. They belong to the community. Some concerns from parents are wondering if academies will revert back to elementary school. They like smaller school setting and feel safer. We've actually heard a lot in the last 12 community meetings, people say the opposite. They would like academies to be reverted back to elementary. They don't like middle schoolers being with the younger kids. Parent, a question. How do we ensure that all student needs are met through engagement and specific intervention? Another one on the academies. Are academies becoming obsolete? Then a question, how much weight does the historical data have on the selection of school closures? Parent, how will you keep the maintenance of AC? My student's class has a portable AC right now. How can we ensure a working AC system? Now, a parent asked a question, will the new school be able to replicate the program offerings of the thriving school? For example, same as ALA or Mark Twain. What has worked well and duplicated? Here are some feedback and suggestions. Can there be a plug and play tool where individuals could hypothesize or use the framework to determine if a school will be in consideration of the plan? Being able to see on our website the enrollment organized from lowest to highest in a graph for fast presentation. A staff member wrote this. Coming from a small campus, I see the inequity firsthand. Our students don't have all the services that they need. Teachers have to wear many hats, and it's a heavy load. A consideration for our criteria, consider the percent of economically disadvantaged students should be considered in addition to size because of transportation limitation. A parent suggested we need communication throughout the process on apps, robocall, letter, etc., all forms of communication. Didn't see anything about restructuring the office staff to do operation at the school-based level in a collaborative manner and with the essence of communicating with the heart. Profiles are great. How do we get the data for schools that are thriving to learn from each other? And a parent, please consider more Saturday meetings for the next round. Then I want to end with two students, direct quotes. I'm going to read them. They were written in Spanish. To honor their native language, I will read them in Spanish and then translate. From a second grade, yo quiero deportes en las escuelas y clases de artes después de la escuela. From a second grade, actually a second grader at Schenck said, I want sports in school. I also want art classes after school. A third grade student at Schenck said in Spanish, me gusta las matemáticas y mis maestras. Quiero que mi escuela siempre esté abierta. So a third grade at Schenck said, I love mathematics, which was melting my heart as a math teacher myself. Not only do I love math, I love my teachers. Please keep my school open. So that is why we're here, about listening to the voices of our students. If we just, everybody, not only us teacher, but our politicians and everybody, would pay attention to what our students and our children have to say, I think we will have a better world and a better society. I want to thank you for your feedback. We are grateful that you spend your evening with us and using your voice to make this process better. We are committed to doing this. As I said earlier, this is not easy. Nobody wants to close schools. As I said, as a newcomer here and early in my tenure, it's not a conversation I wanted to have. And I want to say I am committed to San Antonio. I love this city, and more importantly, I love the San Antonio ISD. It is truly a familia. You guys have welcomed me and embraced me as part of the family. You've allowed me to lead as my authentic self. So I am committed. So I don't want you to think, well, he came from New York and now he wants to close our school. I am so committed that I, about 5 weeks ago, closed on a house. So now I'm going to be a true San Antonian, and I have to tell you, I've still not moved in. I'm sorry, this neighborhood, Pat and Trustee Osuna, it's not in this single-member district, but it's in another single-member district. And my family, my mom and my family are so surprised that I've been here 15 months, and I already purchased a home. The reason they were surprised is because I moved from New York City to LA and to Denver and was there about 5 years in each, and I never bought anything, even though I really loved the city of Denver, but I didn't. It's like, how could it be in 15 months? You already have a mortgage? Why? And that's not like, we always thought you will always return to New York City. And I said, Mom, I love San Antonio. It's amazing. I'm going to retire here. Hopefully, I will die here too as well. And that's why I did it. And so does my family. They really, truly love San Antonio to the point that I have great news. My mom and my sister are going to move in with me. I will no longer be an empty nester. And they do it because they love it. They're going to probably come in November when I finish with the renovation. The only disappointment I have of having my mom and my sister moving in with me and moving into San Antonio is that neither of them are of childbearing age. And we need every single kid so we can increase the enrollment, but it's not going to happen with my mom or my sister. So I'm just telling you, I am committed. I hope you don't think that I'm coming as an outsider and this is the first thing that we wanted to do. It is something that we must do. We owe it to our kids. Every single kid should have an opportunity to become me better than me, and we owe it. This is about doing right for our kids so that everybody can pursue a life without boundary, so every single student can pursue the American dream. And right now, we're not able to deliver on that. And we are going to do this as a familia and standing by our students, our family, and standing by our staff. And we're going to do all this, definitely, with our hearts. So thank you very much for being here. And now let's call back Trustee Ozuna, who's going to share her own reflection, the key takeaways from some of the feedback that you gave us.
Oh. I just want to thank staff. I mean, while we're here, I think all of the SAISD staff did a really fantastic job. In addition to, you know, their ongoing duties, they put together this entire format, all of the programming that we're going through today, all of the ways of capturing all of this input. And I just want to thank the staff. We're here on the 13th meeting, so thank you so much for just marshaling such a phenomenal process that's so inclusive and has brought everyone to the table and has allowed us to really, I felt like listening in to conversations that are pressing on people, and it's great. Some of the values that have really stood out in this particular, because I've been to, this will be my fourth framework session listening, and at the beginning I thought that there were already themes on transportation, on repurposing the campuses, on what will happen in terms of the students' programming. But here, in this particular listening session, very specific, and I think it just speaks to just the nature of our Southside community, is the surrounding neighborhoods. The schools that are anchors in those neighborhoods, they have significance, not just historical significance, like emotional significance. And so that definitely came out in this listening session. And, you know, as a member of a neighborhood association as well in Highland Park, I know, right, like our neighborhoods went up at the same time as these schools. And so we're absolutely very concerned about, you know, what will happen to these facilities. For the parents, and just thank you parents so much for being here. Parents are appreciative of the inclusive, cultural, relevant curriculum and instruction practices. We also have one particular parent who's coming in from an outside district specifically for our dual language programs, and has actually had the experience of being in a charter program that didn't meet the needs of their students. So of course, change in our district has them absolutely concerned, making sure that the class choices for their students in terms of certified teachers, the quality of programming stays intact, right? That they continue to have their expectations met and exceeded, and boy, do we hear that. We also are hearing from parents that on some of the smaller campuses, these split level classes are just unacceptable. And I mean, those parents aren't alone. I think every principal would agree with that, and definitely the teachers in those classrooms would agree with that. Some other questions have to do with technology in the classrooms, in terms of furnishings and then technology in the classrooms in another way, which is that we've invested, I don't know if you know, but we invested in technology backbones on a lot of our campuses. So if we leave those footprints, what will happen to that technology, and will it be able to be a benefit to the community? I hear that loud and clear. One quote from a parent, and I mean, I think I got my whole middle school education in the library, so I absolutely hear this parent, and boy, do I empathize with the student. Our students need safe spaces to read and create, such as a library. And the library theme has come up multiple times. I think we all agree. We want our campuses to be filled with students so that we can staff them fully, so we can have safety officers on our campuses, so we can have librarians on our campuses, that we can have the full range of assistant principals, of special education instructors. That is our goal. And then these are, like I said, these are the common concerns, and I was able to participate. I think, did she? Where it was another parent who went with us on the Melinda, who went on the, yes. So when we went to Colorado to go visit with them on their school closure process, they made us so front and center aware of transportation as a centering consideration for the students, for the families, and even, you know, for the staff, to be thinking through the implications of that for not just the sending school, but for the closing school, but for the receiving school as well. So completely, that is top of mind for all of us. And then this is another quote that I heard, and we are definitely in line with our board goals, was I have a student with disabilities who needs a speech therapist, and I don't want to lose access to these services, and we don't want you to lose access either. But I have been in some of our special education classrooms today on our campuses, and there's just, the gap is so wide. We cannot continue doing what we're doing and expecting a different outcome. We want the same outcome for your student who needs a speech therapist, you know, as we would for all of our students. So those are some of the considerations and comments and feedback that we got during the session. We're taking it all back with us. It's soaking in. We read every single one of them. These are the ones that really stood out to Dr. Aquino and to me, but everyone that took the time to be here and to give a comment, we've got it. We're tracking your concerns, and I just hope you stay with us throughout this entire process, and trust that we're going to get this right. I mean, that's really our intent, and that's our hope. And as you can see from just the enormous effort that staff is putting up, I mean, we are taking this very seriously. So thank you everybody for being here.
All right, so what I would like for you to do now is to pick up a half sheet that's on your table so that you can have easy access to us, to our website for Rightsizing through the QR code, social media channels, and the newsletter. So next is the drawing. Did everybody deposit their passport? Okay, so we're going to have 5 winners here, and you must be present to win. Okay. The first one just says Adrian. So let's see. It's kind of like a rock star. We just go by one name. We know you by one name only. Is Adrian here? Yeah, Madonna. All right. Way to go, Adrian. Mary Caldwell. Oh. Hi, Clarice. It's Marcus McAvey, MC EWY or EVY? Marcus? Okay. That's right. Andy Castillo? Andy? Lizeth Trejo? Okay, and then our last one, Brandy Maraquin? All right. Excellent. Well, this brings us to a close, and you're here because you care about your children, you care about our children throughout the district, and you care about the district, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate that. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your rich feedback and input, and please stay connected with us as we continue to go through this process. We would not want to go through it without you. Have a good evening. Thank you for being here.